Okay, fine. If
By
you
popular
insist.
demand, I think we have to start.
Okay, I don't know where the transitions went. Announcements for this week. So we'll be doing the Game Jam prep meeting next week. So if you weren't aware, the Game Jam is going to be next Friday. So be there or be square. You will certainly be a square if you don't show up. So we'll have an after hours meeting again tomorrow night. That'll be here in Carver, 2:32 at 7 p.m. Cole's going to be going over some stuff about game physics. So if you're interested in that, pull up. Also, we have social night this week. It'll be this Friday, Marston 2200. We'll be doing a small little Smash Bros tournament with a little prize. So we had to postpone that from last time. So
Will it be like last time where like everyone, where Matt Pat shows up and you guys can have
as far as I'm aware, Matt Pat is not making a guest appearance again. Neither is any other large
No
gaming
tornadoes will
adjacent.
also be showing up either. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully there's no tornadoes this time as well. So yeah, that'll be 7 to 10 tonight, or not tonight, Friday night. There should be no issues with that this time.
All right.
Again, also, Game Jam is going to be next week. So, as I said, don't be a square. So, additionally, we have a special quick announcement for everyone. We've been deliberating on this a lot, and we're thinking that it's about time to kind of rebrand the club a little bit. So, without further ado, we're introducing the Gambling Development Club. Adam here is actually going to give us a little demo for this special occasion.
Alright.
So let's give Adam a round of applause. There you go.
Okay, I don't know if y'all ever gambled before, but it's kind of awesome.
I know. I've done it.
Okay, let's check this shit out. Boom! Wyatt, we need audio, quick. The audio's not on. Come on. We need the sound effects.
Literally says on.
Come on. Where I want to go?
You on the HDMI one?
Yeah, it's there.
Oh, there it is.
Bro, do I need to just turn my... Oh, okay, I just have the music off, audio. Okay, let's get all the music on. Okay, everything's there. Okay. Which crate first? You guys pick. Come on. Let's go.
Third row, second column.
Third row, second... This guy?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I have $20 to blow, by the way.
You bought the keys.
Go. No, you have to buy them, like, right here. Don't worry, I just have to click OK.
Okay.
Authorize! Boom! Open to rent? What? I don't know, man. Come on, let's go. Go. No! What is this?
Did you pull a knife? That's actually like absurd.
Okay, next one.
Do the move your mouse. Go the Dreams and Nightmares case.
Dreams, this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Unlock. Come on.
Okay, no, you can. Okay, Adam.
Shut up.
Buy multiple.
Shh. No, you have to buy the individual case
You
key.
can. You?
Yeah.
Like specifically case.
Yeah, it is.
Wait, what? I've not played this game in a minute. Okay.
No!
Get all the pistol. Get him up.
Okay, next one.
Fourth. Third. Oh, darn it. Fourth row. Right.
Fourth row. This guy?
The recoil
Yeah.
case?
Okay, yeah. Come on.
Keep on dropping.
Authorize. Open. Okay. Come on.
Get a pistol.
Where are the reds?
Pistol.
We haven't seen a single goal.
Yeah, okay, that's better.
Okay.
This is ooh! Damn! Oh, it's like 3D and stuff. Oh, that's crazy.
I don't play CS:GO, so I don't know what any of these are.
That's okay.
It's weapon skins. They're worth like pennies. Okay, which one?
Do the recoil case at the top.
Do you have any like
This guy?
special cases? that you-
I gave them away years ago, actually, so no.
Do that revolution case on the left.
This guy?
Yeah.
Okay. Come on. Go. Open to keep.
Go.
Come on.
Pistol.
No. No one uses this gun. I mean, it's a cool skin, but no one uses this.
I have that one.
Okay. Which one next? Come on. Come on, let's go. Let's go. You know what? I pick. You guys have been picking horrible everything. I'm gonna do this one. I'm gonna do this one. Come on.
Go, 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 go.
Come on, crush your fingers, crush your fingers! Oh, it's like see-through!
That blocks good.
Shit. Okay. Wow.
It's got the Game Boy.
That is
It
true.
does. It does. Okay, okay. We got a couple more left.
Dreams and Nightmares.
This one?
Yeah,
This
I
one?
think one.
Okay, I'm on. How much money do I have? I don't actually know. Okay, we still got like $10.
Gamble, 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 gamble.
Come on, this is my last one. Okay, this is decent. No, this is. Okay, this is kind of ugly. I'm gonna sell this one. Who wants this one?
No.
No,
Is that how you got the $20 to begin with?
I my bank account is where I got the $20.
Invested in
I appreciate the
Top left.
dedication
Pressure
to the,
case.
to the
Okay.
presentation.
This better be it. This better hit, bro.
Go ahead.
Come on. Someone needs to do like a good luck dance or something.
Adam, you're actually getting kicked out of the club if you don't get nice.
Oh my god, please. Oh!
Wait, actually, that's not even a bad PP50 skin.
Yeah, it's a little dim, but yeah.
It's the float, but
Yeah,
not bad.
float. Okay. Let's do a few more. Because I haven't hit yet. You know, I'm like
Right,
due. I'm
right.
due now. I'm
Yeah.
due. Okay, which one?
Just do the revolution case on the top. You have a bunch of revolution cases. Just buy 2 keys for that.
Okay.
Buy 10.
You can buy a lot. You can buy bulk. Okay. 2 revolution keys. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Alright, it's not bad. It's like green and stuff. Okay, yeah, it's pretty bad. I hate that skin.
Let's open another revolution case.
Yeah. I'm due to hit. It's gotta hit.
Got it at this point.
Hey, stop.
Oh my god. Dude.
I think you should make pistols.
No.
Is that the last one or?
I think I have one more left.
Pesto. Get a pesto.
Just open another revolution case.
Ah.
Recoil.
Yeah, do the recoil.
Yeah. Revolution is bad luck, dude.
Pesto.
Okay, yeah, this is my last one. Oh, add funds. No, I don't. Yeah, that was it.
Okay, well, I'm gonna hit, so.
I didn't hit.
Unfortunate.
I'm getting kicked out of the class.
It's okay.
I could take the funds from our bank account.
You
the
should
club
not
bank
do
account.
that. No, you should not do that. The Gambling Development Club does not want to do that. In case anyone was wondering, we are not actually rebranding to the Gambling Development Club. Fuck. Oh yeah, I forgot to do that. April Fools, in case you were not aware, we're not actually doing that. The GDC does not endorse gambling in any capacity. Do not do that. Adam was a rogue agent doing that, so.
I'm not associated with this club.
Right. Okay. That said, let's get to the actual meeting topic, which is tangentially related. So risk and reward. So agenda I kind of have for today, besides opening cases. It's got a little bit of a hodgepodge of topics, kind of related to risk and reward. We'll also kind of be talking about like luck and chance mechanics, because that kind of factors into how people essentially make decisions when they're playing or making games. First off, what kind of is risk? Risk kind of is essentially just your chance of either failure or losing at something, and then reward being, of course, opposite of benefit and success. And this is really important for game design, because a lot of what makes good games is kind of striking a balance between these two. You want to try to make things a little interesting. Chance and risk can kind of make sort of interesting choices for the player. And like, if you have too little risk, oftentimes that just ends up being a little boring. If there's nothing to really like, if there's no stakes essentially. A lot of time people might find it not very engaging. I would say something like, Doom versus Animal Crossing have a lot different in terms of like what kind of situations you're putting the player in. Obviously, like Animal Crossing, there's really no stakes to anything really. At most, it's like, oh yeah, there's the economy factor of those games. But like Doom, it's a lot more like, oh yeah, if you die, you'd have to like maybe restart a section of the level, etc. So there's a little bit more like kind of decision making that needs to be done there in order to kind of like succeed in a sense. So that said, also too much risk can sometimes be really frustrating. A lot of games that are like really difficult can kind of just like put off a lot of players just because it might expect too much of them and make like require like too many fast decisions. And decisions are hard to make. That's kind of like an important part of this meeting as well. It's just like sometimes not making a decision can also be a valid choice too. So, like risk has a lot of like strategy that kind of comes with it. And oftentimes, as I kind of mentioned, it comes with different stakes. So like low risk can often be like taking maybe similarly like Mario, where it's like, oh yeah, he's like, big Mario right now. If he jumps and misses that Koopa, he's gonna like get hurt and like become small Mario. Whereas like, maybe in like a fighting game or something, if like you're trying to like, get a hit off on your enemy and you use this like really risky, like difficult move to pull off that leaves you kind of vulnerable if you miss it, you could just lose the match essentially over that. And like the main kind of like essence for a wide variety of games is essentially just boiled down to like managing risks and like getting the rewards. And like strategy is an important way to kind of determine that and like how you kind of like essentially manage these risks. So this can kind of take form of like pretty much any genre of game you can think of has some sort of like risk / like strategy management. So risk assessment is like also an important kind of part for making a lot of games and also playing them. So things to kind of consider in like a given scenario are like, is there any luck? So like probability stuff. Is there like a big impact? So like, is it actually gonna like benefit you in the long run? And like control. So like, will this, can I influence this with my own skill, or is it kind of like it's up to chance? So many players will maneuver different situations in like a variety of ways, and it's kind of important for us as game designers to kind of figure out like, the ways that people might interact with something. And like, a lot of time, risk is like a way just to keep games interesting and like kind of prevent things from being like solved in a sense. You don't want it to be like there's a one way to do everything. There's never really like a right choice in any scenario in a given moment. There might be one in like after the fact, but like for example, like say like I'm playing like Hades or something, and I have an option of like 3 boons. One of them might be generally better than the others, but maybe I have like already gotten a couple other boons that like will essentially make the one I just picked maybe like a lot better. So it's about kind of making like a lot of micro choices and like whether or not that'll actually help you in the long run, or like taking certain things that might have an added downside to them. Another kind of example is like whole lot of multiplayer games often kind of like use risk as the sort of main kind of like way you engage with the game. So like League of Legends, for example, or like most like MOBAs essentially, it's like, oh yeah, so there's kind of 2 different ways you can kind of go about it. So like say there's like a main objective kind of like thing, like an enemy monster or whatever, like it's kind of similar to like Deadlock, for example. There's like a main kind of like objective that you kind of want to like engage with in some capacity, or maybe there's like a low HP player kind of by you. Do you go after the objective or do you go after the player? And it's kind of about making those macro decisions is like what makes a lot of these games really interesting. So and that said, like you don't need to have all of the information known, or like for the player to like know every single thing that like might make the decision better at a given point. But generally speaking, you want players to feel as though they're making somewhat of informed decisions, and like not have it just be only boil down to luck. So,
was I making an informed decision?
I would not be I would say that it was maybe not the most wise decision.
You were informed.
Yeah, you were informed
you saw
of
how
the
much it
risks that would
was.
come with it. I don't think actually, I will say, I don't think Counter-Strike tells you the odds up front of like how likely you are to pull like a knife or something, for example. Yeah, not in the US.
Does
So
it have increasing odds? Because I know Dota, like, they have blue boxes too, but
I don't
you
think.
open, like X amount of boxes, it like increases your odds.
I don't think Counter Strike has.
Yeah, I can kind of get into a little bit more of that in a little bit. I think like I don't think Counter-Strike has anything like that though, but
Economy's so big for that.
it's pretty scarce. Yeah. That said though, as I've kind of talked about a little bit of that, do you guys have any like examples that you can think of where like maybe you've had to make like a difficult choice in like a game or like a multiplayer setting, and kind of what made you kind of jump to that conclusion?
My example is a little bit more abstract, but this has to do with level design in Team Fortress 2. A lot of times maps will be designed in such a way where you have a couple lanes to get to a point, and usually the fastest way is always the one that will put you at the most disadvantage when attacking. So if you want the shortest route to the point, it's the higher risk because you're probably just gonna get shot in the head and die. But usually there's longer, chokier flank routes that act as alternatives for attack that give attackers more of an advantage, but it requires more coordination and more setup in order to take those routes.
Yeah, I think like a lot of times, like stuff like that is essentially like there's like a certain strategy that's like maybe obviously as you kind of said, like there's one route that maybe takes longer, but it's like a lot better of an angle, or like people might not expect as much. Yeah, a lot of different games kind of do similar things to that. I know like there's plenty of strategy games where it's like, oh yeah, you could go like this, maybe like one kind of like build or something that's like, might work against most scenarios, but there's always like kind of maybe certain types of enemies or something that kind of counter that too. Because like I know like I kind of bring it up a little bit later. But like a lot of like I play a lot of Fire Emblem, for example, and like you can definitely like kind of build like maybe like a tank character, but like they might be really good at like defending against like maybe physical damage, but if they're your only kind of solution to a problem, some guy with magic comes in and he's like chain lightning, that might not feel very good, for example. So a lot of games also try to like find ways to kind of like test what players are trying out, and like maybe there's certain play styles that you play that are a lot more risky. Name drop. That like if it's like there's a lot greater of a risk, like maybe you're trying to do like a one-shot build, that might work sometimes, but a lot of times it might not always work either. And it kind of depends on the kind of game you're playing too. So yeah, did you have something?
Yeah, so you talked about League earlier, but MOBAs are a really good example. Like a recent match I had in Dota 2, my team was kind of off in another area of the map. I was pushing in the top lane. Well, a skirmish started going down like on the bottom part of the map. On the other side, it's like, well, I could either take some time to get there or just push their base, and they had one lane of barracks left. And so in Dota, if you take all their lanes of barracks, then you get like mega creeps. It's like boost the shit out of your minions that like push the base. I was like, well, I'm like almost guaranteed to get this because they're not gonna be able to TP out in the middle of the fight to come get to me. So I took the decision like my entire team got wiped and like a few of their people died, but I took the rest of their like defenses and then just like ended up getting out. We ended up winning a game because like they couldn't handle any of the like later pushes, but it's like that huge risk of like, okay, I kind of sacrificed my team for that decision, but I secured the objective. So it's like,
Did you
Those
get
really
insulted
disappointed.
in voice chat?
yeah, a little bit, cause like they're like, you fucking rat. I was like, well, it won the game, so.
I will say, yeah, that's like I would say like a social factor sometimes in part of it too. It's like sometimes like I played like maybe like Valorant sometimes where it's like, oh yeah, like once or twice. Grow up. There's been a couple times where like I've essentially just like low-key sacrificed one of my teammates to like get a playoff, and I'm like, because like it would just be like oh yeah, I throw a flash at a weird way and it blinds my teammate. I don't bother telling them because they're like, oh, free kill. They go for them, and then I can kind of like secure a kill or two that way. And like there's definitely risks to be had with that of you will piss off your teammates. But yeah, did anyone else have any yeah.
I was gonna say Poker Night mainly due to the fact that like I was gonna say poker night mainly due to the fact that you have to make a lot of guesses on what you do. So like, since it's poker, you're gonna have to read your opponent's faces, see like, oh, do they have good cards or bad cards? Or should I just like dump everything?
Yeah, and I actually kind of talk about a little bit more of like luck stuff too, in like kind of the second half of this meeting. Yeah, one more.
In like deathless runs for like Metroidvanias, for example, you've got to decide, do I want to attempt this challenge, fight this boss for the upgrade? Do I not want to do that? Do I want to try to come back later?
Yeah. Kind of similar to that. I've actually like played quite a bit of a Baldur's Gate 3 on honor mode. That's kind of the main mode actually I play, which is like the permadeath one. That's a long game, mind you. So like if you die, you kind of have to start all the way from the beginning again. Which if you're already like 30 hours in, that kind of blows. I can say from experience. But like for me, when I'm playing like Baldur's Gate, for example, a lot of time it is like kind of picking certain bosses that I know might be harder for like my kind of party composition and saving those for maybe later and trying to tackle other challenges first. Because like that's kind of in my eyes, the least risky way of going about it. But yeah. So, kind of with a little bit of like decision making as well is most players are not very rational when they are playing games. That said, there are plenty of times where people are probably making the better choice. But a lot of the time, people just kind of rely on feelings. It's a little bit like a psychology thing. When you're making like a sort of like a risk decision, most of the time it's not fully based on logic. It's kind of just based on vibes. A little bit of that too. So again, I mentioned I play Fire Emblem quite a bit. There's a weird kind of thing with those games where, and I'll kind of get into like, hit rate and other chance stuff like that a little bit as well. But the games kind of use this like weird little like curve to kind of define. So like this is essentially what the game tells you the hit rate is, and I believe this is the actual hit rate. And so like there's kind of a weird discrepancy on like, the game will kind of lie to you essentially and say a 90% hit rate is essentially 99% hit rate. So like you're more likely to hit like a 90%. And it feels more like what you would think it would, whereas like an actual 90%, every time you miss on that 10%, you're going to be pissed. The red line represents the actual like accurate kind of like hit rates and stuff. So like on the lower ones, you are much more likely to miss as a result of that, how that kind of formula works out. There's also a lot of like with like decision making, like cognitive biases. So like essentially like certain people might be inclined to think certain ways about a given scenario. Maybe I just like, maybe I'm playing some type of multiplayer game. I just like shooting at people or like fighting them. I don't really like the whole like, maybe I gotta go fight for this objective or kind of like plant the bomb, whatever kind of objective based like thing you're working towards. A lot of people might just be like, I just want to go click and point at the people and they die. And like that is not probably the best case scenario. For a lot of games, actually, like getting kills doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna win the game. You could have a huge lead in like kills. You could be like maybe 30 to like 0 on your like KDA or whatever, and like still not win the game because you didn't prioritize any of the important objectives that the game tries to like utilize. With that also, a lot of time there's certain things that people just perceive as not fair. So like, let me think of an example. Say like Counter-Strike again, but like it's just on the mind. Some people might be like the operator, which is like essentially a really expensive one-shot rifle is not fair because
It's a Counter-Strike, not Valorant.
yeah, okay, but it's technically the same.
No, it's
gun.
not.
Okay, whatever. The
There's a double-
AWP
Right.
is essentially like might be considered not fair because it one shots you if you get hit by it pretty much anywhere but your legs. That said though, if you know the enemy has an op, you have to kind of play around it in a specific way. You don't obviously like if there's maybe like a really long corridor, it's a long range gun. If they're like holding that angle, you might not want to just run out of it like you're a little maniac and be like, like jump at you kind of thing. Yeah. And like if you're getting like, hit by it repeatedly, you might just think this gun's not fair. Like they're just one-shotting me. What am I supposed to do? And to some extent, that's kind of valid. But at the other time, it's kind of about the decisions you're making and if you're adapting to the like scenarios you're put in. A lot of people when they're playing games often just kind of think of like the immediate benefits rather than like these sort of like long-term like what will help my team win. And like a lot of games like Counter-Strike or Valorant, like economy is an important part of it too. Thinking like how you're spending your money and stuff. A lot of times these like less obvious systems are kind of what ultimately like win you games, for example. And that kind of applies to just anything, just kind of a main example. But yeah, so like a lot of time, like just in general, like not even pertaining to games, people are just thinking like, what is going to benefit me right now rather than like what is going to be better in the long term. Because thinking in the long term is hard. So just being aware of like that's how kind of people think a little bit is important for like when you're designing certain mechanics and stuff. So that you can kind of like understand when people are like, oh yeah, this mechanic sucks if they give you feedback, knowing like, does it actually suck or do they not understand kind of the importance of it? And finding ways to kind of communicate that to players. So yeah.
I just want to add to this slide as a whole. If players are very irrational whenever taking risks, but what separates good players from freaking noobs is those who take risks and those who manage risks.
Yes. There's a very important difference between just like, oh yeah, I like say I'm playing Deadlock or something, and like there's a like mid boss or something like that, and I'm just like, I just gotta go in there and secure the rejuvenator or whatever it's called. I don't actually play it that much.
Bro,
I'm a LARPer. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. But like the mid boss, and I'm like, I gotta get in there so that they can't end the game, and then diving in there while the rest of my team is defending the base, and it's like, did I really need to just throw myself in there, or like was there a better way to kind of figure out like, is this a worthwhile play to go for?
You need at least like 2 or 3 people. I think to take mid
Right.
boss because it has a minimum damage threshold that you need to hit before you even start getting damage.
Actually, but yeah, like Adam said, it's a lot of the time just like essentially teaching the player to know how to manage the risks they are being presented. On the flip side, though, randomness is something that's really important for a lot of games. It can really create variety. It's essentially just a series of outcomes that are not like set in stone by the developer or the player. Because it kind of like just can create a lot more like emergent kind of gameplay scenarios, which is why like, again, there's a lot of multiplayer games that are really fun and memorable in certain ways because of the fact that like not every game is going to be the same way. Pretty much every single type of game, or maybe like a couple, can really benefit from like a bit of variety. That said, I want to put like random mechanics in chess. I don't think chess would be a better game if I had a dice roll every time. I was like, can I move my queen this turn? But that said, a lot of time I would not say just to rely on pure randomness, because that can kind of affect how people make decisions. If people like don't feel as though there's any sense of like actual meaningful choices to be had, they might just not really care. If it's like, oh yeah, essentially it's kind of the difference between like playing poker, where you have like a little bit of like choice and like kind of can decide when and when not to like stay in, versus like the slot machines, like, or just open in Counter-Strike cases where it's like, you're essentially just clicking the button and just hoping that something happens. And I would say that, Windows update, Adam, don't freak out, but I'm gonna click cancel.
That's all right.
But that said, like, I think, gambling can be a little fun, but generally speaking, it's not quite like, how do you put it?
The house always wins.
Yeah, it's not quite fair in a sense. Kind of elaborating more on that. Luck is generally not a mechanic most players kind of enjoy. At least in the raw sense of just, there's a random number generated for X action. And as I kind of mentioned, like a lot of time it removes choice from the player. And like a big part of like the kind of core of games is that ability to make your own choices, sort of thing. It doesn't mean like, you have to have like a branching narrative or anything like that. It's literally just like, what do I choose to do in this given moment? And like a lot of times some games can kind of get bogged down by just like if there's like a sort of one specific option that's better than everything else. And like also sometimes luck can just kind of remove a sense of like mastery. Like getting good at a game is a kind of fun and satisfying part of playing them. If it's just kind of there's not actually skill being applied, it might not be as fun for people. So that said though, what do you guys kind of think roughly on like luck in games? Do you think it's like a necessarily a good thing or bad thing? Like what's your kind of general thoughts?
I think blackjack's pretty fun
Yeah? Why's that?
because I win sometimes.
So by
I
that
lose
metric,
other times.
by that metric, would you say like,
And whenever there's a 15 minimum bet, there's a lot at stake.
so would you say like, I don't know, Jenga is just as fun because you win sometimes?
I mean, it really depends on like who you're playing with. I've been with some pretty bad Jenga crowds in my day, but I've also been with some pretty good Jenga crowds.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I personally think that having some sort of luck makes the game somewhat at least like interesting or worth revisiting because me, for example, I've dedicated over 6 years to master at least Mario Kart to the point where I competed in tournaments and gotten like high rankings and gotten compensated and done great in tournaments. But even if, like, for example, like the game night that we did, even sure, I might be good. I know all the tracks. I know the card combinations. I know every single interaction. But who can say who's gonna pull a lightning and who can say they're gonna pull that trigger and who's gonna say they're gonna run me over and screw my entire momentum up, even though I calculated everything. So sure, I can be good at the game, but having that like luck aspect makes me still not an expert. It makes me want to get better and like not leave the game because like I got too bored. I mastered it already.
Yeah.
He has something to say.
Have you tried sandbagging? That's pretty.
I tried it once after watching a Shortcut video. It absolutely did not work at all. That's something I feel like he is only like good at. And like I'll just front run.
I will say like Mario Kart's a really like interesting example where that game is like kind of dominated by luck in some sense of like, obviously the items kind of play into that a lot. But like there are quite a few ways to kind of like navigate that game that like can kind of help greatly improve your chance of winning. Like
You can cheese it.
I mean, yeah, like obviously like something like bagging.
It's like you mentioned earlier, risk management. Because like the whole strategy of bagging is that you have like basically guaranteed chance that you get like a bullet, a gold mushroom, like a star if you're in last place. So you kind of like manage those odds and use it to your advantage because generally they'll just bag, get a double, and then like I've seen him like smuggle lightnings up to like second place because he got a bullet bill, played the track well, just driving normally, and kept those items instead of using them, and got to like I don't know 8th or 9th place, and then used them, and then got to the front, and then just like blew everyone out of line. And then it was like either like the beginning of like the third lap or the end of the second lap, where it's just like if you get that much of a lead that late in the game, it's kind of hard for anyone to like overtake you. So
Right. Which I think like that's also a kind of an interesting thing of like a lot of time it's like, we'll see like someone who maybe hasn't played a lot of Mario Kart, they don't use their items in the same way someone who has played a lot of Mario Kart does. Where it's like if I'm playing with like my dad, for example, love my dad, but he might like get like a mushroom, for example, and just immediately use that, no questions asked, just because it's like, oh, that's a speed boost, which, might not be a bad way to use it. But you could also just go for a shortcut with it, and if you don't know the shortcuts and stuff, etc.
Or you can go a blue shell.
That too.
Yeah.
Or even like, if you still go for that shortcut, I know like Mario Kart World, for example, has a lot of like really big shortcuts you can go on. A lot of those come with really big risks of just if everyone else is going on it, you have a fair chance of either getting hit by like an item or like getting knocked off or like shocked during it. There's a lot of risk to that. So like knowing still like obviously manipulating like items and stuff, so like trying to bag, it might not be like the most fun strategy, but it's a lot safer. So like you're trying to minimize your risk is the main thing with doing something like that while still having that little bit of luck there. So anyone else have anything they wanted to? Yeah.
I think that your approach to luck depends entirely on what kind of game you're making. If you're making a single player game, you're probably going to want to balance it more in the player's favor, especially if it's a video game, because if they get a bunch of bad rolls and unlucky, it's going to start feeling like they're being cheated, especially since they're only playing against the computer. If it's a multiplayer game, it's a lot easier to have it balanced because the interaction between players also mitigates the luck any one person can have. And if it's like an analog game, you can really lean on luck if you want. There's like plenty of games where it's just like you get to draw the card right, or you get the high roll.
I would say like Monopoly or like even Candyland, where it's literally just you just roll dice and then you win at some point.
The
Dude,
fact that
dude,
you
I
have
was
direct control in the analog game, I think also makes it easier to accept a bad roll because like, oh, I rolled the dice, I drew the card, I spun the spinner. So like I have some blame in that it feels
Right. I think there's like a little bit of like almost like psychology of just like when you're like rolling the dice, it feels like you have a bit more control on how they're gonna land, even like just like how you shape like the dice, for example. Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, I didn't even think about that. But yeah, anyone else, or am I going to move on?
I guess I'm one more kind of take on it, but like again with Dota, there's a lot of stuff that is influenced by luck, like crit chance or like there's runes that spawn that grant buffs. I feel like I said earlier with the kind of biases of luck sucks when it's not my favor, so that's like that selective memory. But I really like they said it kind of adds that variety, like that extra mechanic can add I don't know, like a skill difference on like okay I got this luck thing. How do I utilize it better? Or if they have it, how do I like defend against that? It really does add just that new mechanic that has extra variety.
Actually, my next part then is pretty much I'm going to be going through like a couple different like luck based mechanics and kind of like a little bit about them. So I guess before we kind of end off this little section, there's a really interesting kind of psychology to luck and like a little bit of ethical issues with it sometimes. Obviously, any sort of like variable reward can be a little addicting. See gambling as an example.
I'm due, man. I just gotta put in $21. It'll hit, trust me.
Well, right, and it's like the worst thing that there's like a saying of like the worst thing to ever happen to like someone going to a casino is to win. Because like or the first time going to a casino, it's like because if you go and you win the jackpot your first time, you're gonna be convinced to some extent that you could do it again. And like it's that sort of like one more effect of like, oh yeah, if Adam did pull a knife, there is a chance that you could feel more inclined to kind of go for another one.
The first time I watched my buddy sit down at a slot machine, he won $600 on the first pull.
Yeah.
How much did you put into it?
I think it was a $4 bet. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of with that, like unpredictability really like just hijacks your kind of like reward system in your brain. Essentially like, if you win big on like a sort of like any gambling sort of thing, it kind of causes like a little bit of like a dopamine surge that kind of can lead to more kind of compulsive behaviors that like lead you to like, being more inclined to do it again, essentially. And like I bring this up just because like your game could have like some type of luck mechanic in it, and like it might not be gambling where they're like wasting money and like it's actually like negative on the person, but it's important to kind of think about this of like, say I'm playing a game with like crits in it or something like that. If I'm like playing like Fire Emblem, I know I keep bringing it up, whatever, but
So I like the game or something.
it's almost like I like the video games. Let's say Awakening, for example, and I get like a 1% crit on enemy. There's no strategy to this. It's just, I just happen to be lucky, but it feels really cool. And we're going to talk about that and why it kind of feels a little cool as well. It's obviously, again, a little bit of that just kind of instant dopamine, but like, yeah, what's up?
One time I was playing Fire Emblem and my healer got 2 back-to-back crits in a row and killed this giant monster.
Right, and that felt cool, didn't it?
It did. It
Yeah.
felt awesome. I have a bit saved on
I was gonna say, I'm gonna talk about it in a second then. So chance mechanics. So there's like a kind of a wide variety of like ways that like chance kind of mechanics can manifest, and these kind of like often throw a wrench in a little bit of your risk reward kind of like strategy management. But that said, a lot of time they're kind of fun, or you can even like take the chance out and like utilize that in a game that generally does rely on chance. So like RNG is like a really popular thing of just random number generation. So like essentially hit rates are a big one I kind of thought of. So like a lot of RPGs in particular, there's kind of like hit rates and avoid rates. So like your chance to kind of like hit something or miss something. And like some games, even like Pokemon, they even use like, there's like a move called like Swift, for example, or like a bunch of other moves kind of similar to it, where essentially it's a 100% chance to hit, but it might not be very powerful or something like that. That's something you can kind of factor in too. What's up?
60 base power.
Yeah, like 60 base power. So it's like, it's nothing to write home about. There might be certain Pokemon where it's good on, but like generally speaking, might not be super powerful. However, if say your opponent is like trying to build up a lot of evasion or something like that, you at least have a better shot of hitting them with a 100% hit chance than a essentially 0% hit chance. So the game, I think it's always good when you have tools to kind of like, you know, dodge tank or something like that. They kind of like throw things at the player that like might not make that 100% guaranteed, just because that adds variety in a sense. That's kind of like the little bit of like the slogan for this meeting a little bit today. But another kind of example I personally think is really interesting is like a lot of shooter games have like recoil patterns. So essentially the way it works is it's meant to like simulate. So if like I'm firing like an automatic weapon or something like that, it'll like essentially kick up a little bit just because of like the gun has recoil. And like that can kind of like create a little bit of unpredictability because like obviously you're just like firing a gun over and over again. You might not be really controlling it that well. Games are gonna try to like have a similar sort of effect where it's like say you're like you have an AK and like Counter-Strike and like there's a specific pattern that the gun kind of follows just because of the way that the gun will kick around, but there's like a little bit of variation in there, so you're not guaranteed to hit every single shot. And sometimes like this like kind of incentivizes like maybe like tap firing or playing a little safer, but like you might, you know, obviously you're not shooting as many bullets, for example. Or like I know Fortnite has this like kind of mechanic that's like a little similar where Fortnite's like not like you have 100% accuracy. I think it's first shot you do, but like beyond that, your crosshair starts to kind of expand out and actually represents like the area your bullets could land. And that kind of like prevents you from like, unless you're using like a sniper where that doesn't really apply, kind of like prevents you from just like spraying with like a rifle from really far away. Because Fortnite's meant to be a little more casual kind of in a sense. So like you can't just like have a gold scar and just mow someone down from a distance without at least like
worst blooms in history.
Yeah.
So sorry. It's so
You
horrible.
have to tap fire.
yeah, you usually have to tap fire from a distance. And like that's kind of meant to be like a little more fair, like and kind of give people a little more time to react instead of just like, you know, your entire health bar depletes in like a second.
And it's more realistic.
And it's more whatever, bro. But like also that can kind of like, you know, stuff like that can be utilized to like make the players play in a certain way. Obviously, like most of the time when like people like say like in like the military or whatever, they're like utilizing a gun, they're not like running and gunning kind of thing, like back and forth. So like Counter-Strike or Fortnite,
Jiggle peeking.
you don't really jiggle peek in real life. But like, games still kind of try to like disincentivize that sort of play style by like maybe when you're moving, you're less accurate because realistically, you're not gonna be as accurate if you're running and gunning, as the term suggests. That said, that's a riskier play style. You can certainly do it, but the game kind of disincentivizes you from doing it as like the preferred way. But it doesn't ever like prevent you from doing that. So that's an important kind of thing to think about. Critical hits are my personal favorite kind of chance mechanic. They're probably the most popular form of like luck in most games. Generally, it's just kind of like meant to be like oh yeah, you're, you know, hitting like the weak spot and enemy and something like that, or like like you get like a big damage multiplier, and it's like usually they sometimes like to do some like flashy thing. There's actually like a couple different ways that critical hits actually manifest. So like even like in like something like what is it like FromSoft games, if you like hit an enemy enough times, sometimes it can get like knocked down for a second. If you're like, yeah, I think it's usually like a consecutive kind of thing. If you're like repeatedly hitting them in a short amount of time,
Just a hidden like dagger.
yeah, there's like a essentially like a each weapon kind of has a little bit of a different like modifier for like their poise damage and stuff like that. And like then if you knock them down, you can kind of like stab them really hard and it does a bunch more damage. Like that can be kind of used to like reward like sort of mastery of the game in some sense. A lot of time like crits also are just kind of used for like chance and excitement. So like essentially the gambling idea. I hit a big damage number and it's really thrilling kind of thing. Sometimes also though they can be kind of used to like create a little bit of momentum. So like say I don't know, like you're kind of like maybe either you or your enemy you're fighting essentially like are kind of in like a stalemate or something like that, or like maybe you're like just really tanky and like enemies are not really getting through you. Throwing a crit there, maybe that like ignores a certain amount of your like defense or something, and like all of a sudden you're in a lot more dangerous of a position just because like you got crit. And so that's like can be used to kind of create more of that variation that I've been talking about. Big part of it also is sometimes just a power fantasy of you can just look really cool doing it, or like just you do a lot of damage. I know there's like some games where it's like you can literally like proc certain effects on like a crit or something like that, and just they just explode essentially. So yeah.
Wait,
Um,
wait. There is a critical hit mechanic in Pokemon Sword that kind of really irritates me. The only way to get my favorite Pokemon or second favorite Pokemon Surfetch'd is to get Farfetch'd to hit 10 consecutive critical hits. Do you know how hard that is? Do you know how hard that is?
Really?
You have to
Yes.
pop that
Wait,
stupid bird
it's
full of
10?
so many TMs, so many like moves and like potions or whatever the hell you use to increase your crit chance, and then like only after like an hour of grinding you'll finally get Surfetch'd
so it's 10 consecutively.
consecutively.
I did not remember that from when I played that. Holy.
Did you get Surfetch'd?
I think I did.
I don't think I did.
What was it consecutively or in a or
I think
or
it
in a
was just
battle?
like total.
It's total.
Because I was like, no way it's
total.
consecutively. Because like Pokemon hit or crit chances are pretty low.
I thought it was consecutive.
Because if it's in the same match, you would need to swap out, and that will nullify the consecutiveness. Because you need to heal them, and you also need to false swipe them, and you also need to make sure that they don't go into struggle, because it is highly likely that they end up in struggle first rather than getting 10 crits in a single shot. And Farfetch'd does not have access to healing pools, so the only way to actually heal your opponent is by switching out into another Pokemon, healing them, switching back in, and then keep getting those crits and keep on swiping. And you will need to calculate your attack IVs and EVs to correlate to their defense and special defense EVs and IVs, so that again you can see how much damage it does, so you can do it for 10 times in a row. And since it's so unlikely, it's deemed impossible.
I was gonna say like the biggest issue there is just like, how do you not kill your enemy after doing it 10 times?
Okay. A lot of crits though.
Yeah, sure.
It's 3 crits in one battle. is what it is.
That's
Oh,
still
it's
kind of hard though.
It's pretty hard. It's
Yeah,
not something you
that's-
just do.
Okay,
at a
I don't know why I remember 10 crits. That's my bad.
Okay, but
It's not
still,
as preposterous as.
Really crazy. It's not incredible.
Right.
So it's like you get 2 crits, kill 2 of the Pokemon, they have 1 Pokemon left, you just end up killing it on the next blow.
I mean, there
Without getting
are
crit, yeah.
moves that have higher like crit chance as well as like I know there's like what is it, focus energy or something that like
Yep.
improves your crit chance. So there's ways to kind of force it a little bit, which I'll talk about in a second.
Yeah.
Which will be
Kind of another mechanic that's kind of related is like loot drops. Often just essentially percent chance to have a certain item drop from an enemy, or like for it to happen. This almost always kind of results in a little bit of grinding, which some players like for some reason. I personally don't. If I have to grind for a like percent chance like item, then it's like less than 1%, I'm gonna be a little irritated. I would always say, do not don't make your game like impossible to beat with loot drops, or like don't make it where it's like you have to grind to some extent, like for a specific item, to like win.
World of Warcraft Survivor here.
I was gonna say like it's probably a little bit of fun just because like if you enjoy the actual systems of the game, maybe you don't mind. Most games though, I don't know if the average person like is that thrilled about the mechanics to where they're like, yeah, I'm gonna spend 500 hours looking for this one item that gives me like a little bit more damage. That said, I am a Terraria player, so it is kind of a part of that game.
A big part.
It is actually a massive part of that game, which I would say, in my opinion, is probably one of the main negatives of that game. Just because a lot of time there's certain items that you just don't know how to get without grinding and like just getting a little lucky. But
It makes every playthrough a little bit different.
a little bit. It wants to be used kind of as like a balancing feature too, of like I mentioned Terraria again. Rod Discord lets you just teleport. Really broken kind of ability. That said, it is like what is it? It's like a 0.125% chance to get it from like a mildly uncommon enemy. So that said, crazy strong ability that they kind of try to like counteract with making it impossible to find. But also like kind of with multiplayer games like Fortnite or like kind of Destiny as an example, Rarity can like also kind of use to like essentially balance certain mechanics, as well as like you can also use like Rarity to kind of like distinguish certain items from one another. You can have like, you know, your commons, your uncommons, epic, legendary, what have you, all those kind of things. A lot of time, like, so Fortnite, for example, uses that as like a way to kind of like make, say, like, essentially even the playing field to some extent. So like you could have two people land at the same location and like one could get like a slightly better gun than the other. It's not a huge enough difference to where it's going to be like you win the fight specifically because you have a better gun, but generally the better player with a okay to good gun will probably win. But that said, if you have like a gold scar on drop and you're like a new player, you're probably gonna do a little bit better just because you have a better gun. But that said, like it's not the only way to balance, of course, but it's certainly like a kind of interesting way, in my opinion, too. Because a lot of times that's like kind of makes what Fortnite interesting is like you land and you find a rare item, and you kind of like maybe steamroll the game after that. But lastly, kind of like luck manipulation is kind of an interesting thing. A lot of games kind of try to find ways to like essentially remove a little bit of that uncertainty with it. See, Gabriel. And like can give you like certain equipment or like maybe like a luck stat you can kind of level up, or like temporary buffs and stuff like that that can kind of like you can kind of make things a little bit more like expected and remove a little bit of that risk. So like for example, like Baldur's Gate, for example, or just like D&D in general, you have like your different kind of stats and stuff, and like maybe there's like certain equipment or like things you can do that kind of like bump up one of those stats. So like say I'm trying to convince this guard to like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be here kind of thing, and I'm not very like charismatic kind of thing. Maybe like there's like a spell called Guidance, for example. One of my teammates like taps me with a little bit of guidance, and that actually can give me a little modifier on my dice roll. It's not going to guarantee that it works out, but it can kind of influence things in my favor a little bit. So I think like luck manipulation is probably the best way to include any kind of like chance mechanic, just because like it gives the player a bit more control while still kind of maintaining that like variety in a sense. But yeah. Lastly, we have gambling, essentially. So like loot boxes, gacha, and like actual like hard gambling.
Retro game.
Retro gambling, sure. I would say, I guess, yeah, gacha is the modern gambling, but it's obviously very addictive. I mean, there's plenty of stories of just like, oh yeah, this guy spent like a bajillion dollars on like Counter-Strike or like Overwatch cases and like lost a lot of money off of it.
What?
And I think it's a really important thing for like game designers and like people making games with anything kind of like this to, you know, try to be a little responsible if you're doing it.
Valve invented it.
Yeah.
They
Um,
opened Pandora's box.
I think like, you know, there's a line. I don't personally think great to kind of incorporate stuff like this. That said, I'm not one to judge. If you really want to include a gotcha system in your game, whatever, bro. I do think like gotcha systems are kind of weird because like most of the time they're only really in single player games anyway. It's not even like there's a mechanical benefit to getting it besides makes your gameplay a little easier. But yeah, a lot of these kind of games also have like some legal concerns nowadays. So bear that in mind if you wanted to include it. There is definitely some risk to be had with including it. So.
It's the town meeting.
I know.
Reward.
There's not that much reward. I mean, there's money reward, but there's not that much
I
reward.
just got chills down my spine.
So kind of like a closing little question. Where would you guys kind of say the line between like fun risk and like just straight up like this is just luck kind of would be?
If I feel awesome, then it's good.
Right. That's your nuanced take on it.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, it's like you said, the loot box is straight up luck versus like having a crit chance.
Right.
Yeah, I would say, you know, like that, you know, when similar to like Fire Emblem, right? When you can see, you know, the probability for certain things like in Terraria 2, I think that gives you a lot more, you know, agency over, you know, the decisions you make.
Right. Because like I mean, even in like Terraria, it's like, oh yeah, there's like, you know, 1% weapons that like might be okay. It might not be worth my time to go for it. Like that's kind of a little bit of like it too. Is like
And
the
the theory literally tells you when to drop it.
right, and so like it kind of gives back a little bit of that choice of like the sort of risk and reward of like, is this actually worth my time? Or like even if it's a really hard enemy, like maybe it's like I don't know, like I personally have trouble with like the mimics sometimes. It's like, is it really worth kind of fighting one of those if I can just get a similar weapon and still do as much damage? So
I think the other thing too that you kind of like didn't really say explicitly, but mentioned in what else is like when you can interact with the luck or the chance space itself, it's usually gonna be more fun because it's like I feel like most people play games. You're in control. You don't want to be subject to just like the whims of the video game mechanics. So the more interactivity you have with it, or the more like I don't know decision making or like risk management that you can do with it, the more fun it is.
right. I would say like the core of like what makes luck kind of at least somewhat interesting is it's not actually luck. It's just kind of a sometimes it happens
It's like
sort of thing.
pseudo randomness.
Yeah.
I like you have the Fire Emblem. I think that that's pretty interesting where it's just like weighted towards like the extremes, whereas the middle is just like actually 50.
Right.
I think there's a lot of games like that where it's like pseudo random. Like say you have a 75% miss chance. Well, you do 3 hits and miss, your 4th hit's like guaranteed or something like that. Like there's a lot of mechanics like that.
Right. Or even like some people like will even perceive that as like, oh, if I've missed like or if I've hit 3 times in a row, if I had 75% chance, surely I'm still gonna hit the 4th time. And or you might not hit any of the times. Like that's the kind of weird thing about luck is like you kind of need to know how to assess the numbers in like a somewhat reasonable way, but that's kind of hard to do in a sense.
I know Dota did some interesting stuff because there's a lot of things that have like proc chance or like I don't know, evasion chance, something like that was percentage based, but they ended up changing it to like there's like a retaliate attack that you can do with one character. Like if you get hit a bunch, like you have a high chance of like counterattacking. But they ended up just changing it recently where it's like if you get hit 5 times, you just automatically counterattack. So like they just took away the luck entirely, but it's still like at an interval, so it's not broken.
Right. Would you say the game's better for it then?
Yeah, and you're also not like there's times where you'd be fighting and you're not getting any counterattacks. There's times where you were fighting and you hit like 3 in a row and you're like, well, I didn't need that, that's overkill. So
Nice. Yeah, last one.
Plus, there's also games like Undertale, right? Where there are actually tons of things that are super luck based, but none of them matter. Like that.
Right. I do personally enjoy it where it's just like there's a 1% chance for this weird little guy to show up. Like I think stuff like that is definitely like adds to like replayability as well. Like I don't think luck's necessarily a bad thing. Obviously there's ways of incorporating it like gambling where it's straight up probably not good for the player, but like even if it's just like adding a little like again, as I said, a little bit of variety can like really help kind of make a game either replayable or more memorable in some ways. So sweet. All right, well, that's all I have for this week. Just some reminders real quick. Game Jam prep meeting next week. If you have not done a Game Jam before or you want a little more info on like kind of how our Game Jams work, stop by and I'll kind of be running through some of that. As a reminder also, the Game Jam is next Friday, so don't forget about it. We're doing an after hours meeting tomorrow. Cole will be hosting that here in Carver in 232, not this one. I think this is 268, so it'll be probably down the hall that way. And then yeah, he'll be talking about like game physics and stuff, and like kind of how like ways of implementing that, and like just kind of having a little discussion on that. And then also we'll be having a social night this Friday from 7 to 10. We'll be mainly doing a little small Smash tournament, so preferably bring your own controller. But yeah.
Yeah, bring a Switch if you want to.
Yeah, if you want to bring one to help speed up brackets, depending on how many people pull up, that'd be awesome. Without further ado, go forth, make games, be awesome. So.